Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tim Yoon, and today we're going to talk about data persistence, which is obviously a very important aspect of SwiftUI apps, actually any apps. And data persistence can be tricky, so I want to start off with a very simple way to persist data using user default functions. I'm going to show you a couple of generic functions that can be used for many different kinds of data types. After I do this, I'm thinking about moving on to do a more advanced architecture such as MVVM, and then moving on to core data and possibly Firebase to show you how to persist data in each of these kinds of systems. But first, let's just get our feet wet with user defaults, which is great for small bits of data, great for creating just a minimal viable product, or perhaps just for mockups, prototyping, that sort of thing. User defaults is easy to use, but you're not allowed to store large amounts of data in there. So you're thinking probably just some text, maybe anything less than maybe a megabyte of data should be okay. So I'm going to first show you the function here. It's called save. And I created this looking at some code on user defaults. And this way, by using a generic data type called t, we can reuse this function in many different situations. So what I would want you to do is go ahead and just copy these and then use it in your functions as you in your apps, just as you need it. So it takes in a generic type t, which is identifiable and codable. And then the parameters is that it'll take in an array of t and a string key, which is used to identify the particular saved data. So now this is how it works. You create an instance of a JSON encoder instance, and then call the function encode, and it'll encode the items. And it'll try to do that. And if it does work and you get a non-nil value of encoded, then it uses user defaults.standard.set and sets that encoded data into the user defaults using this key. Now, the counterpart to that is a load function. Again, it's a generic function using type T. It has to be identifiable and codable, and it uses a key, the same key that you use to save. Now you say user defaults.standard.object for that key, and then as question mark data. And if that works, then you get this data. If not, it just returns an empty array, okay? So then you take a instance of a JSON decoder, an instance right here, and then you call the decode function and say, hey, what I want is an array of type T from this data that we got from the user defaults. And then if that's not a nil value, you actually got an array of data, then it returns the data array. Otherwise, it'll return an empty array. Okay, so those are the functions. You can keep them in the global namespace, or better yet, put it into some sort of a view model. But today, I'm just going to keep it simple and keep it in the global namespace for tutorial purposes. So as usual, when we're developing these kinds of apps, it's best to create a model first. So struct todo will be identifiable. Var ID equals UUID. This creates a unique identifier for this model. Var text, and this will be the text that contains, the thing that you want to do. Var is done equals false. And of course, that tells you whether it's done or not, and we'll start that off as false. And using the model view architecture, we'll just create a start state, and then we'll say private var to-dos, and the to-dos will be an array of to-do, and we'll set that to an empty array to start off with. We'll get rid of the text hello world and give it a nav stack. And inside the nav stack, we'll have a list. And inside the list, there'll be a for each, to-dos, and to-do in. Now, it turns out it'll be a lot easier for us if we just do this as a binding to the to-dos, the state variable, and a binding. And that way we can actually change the variables directly from the for each. And inside that, we'll just create a simple list row view, which we'll call, we'll start off with text field. And this will be a to-do text. And then it'll be $ to-do dot text. Okay. Spacer. And then we'll put in an image here, system name. And here, the image that we want to display is either a check mark with a circle around it or just a plain circle. And the way I'm going to do that is say to-do.isDone using this ternary operator. And what we need here is a check mark, dot circle. And if that is not done, then we'll just give it a circle like that. Okay. And that works fine. Excuse me. And we'll go ahead and give this a navigation title, call it to-dos, and give it just a little bit of color. We're gonna put in an emoji here, to-dos, bam, right there. And I'm gonna create a toolbar here, and the toolbar will really be so that'll allow me to add a to-do item, and we'll say button, action, and we'll keep that blank for now. The image here will be system name, and the string, here we go. The string will make it a plus. And there you go, there's the plus. Of course, it doesn't do anything right now, but the action we're gonna do is to-dos dot append a new to-do, a blank to-do. So now when you press this, something should happen. Yes, indeed. We have something here. It's a text field. You could say wash the car. Right now, when you click on this, nothing happens, but let's give it that functionality. And we say dot on tap gesture. And we're going to say to-do dot is done dot toggle. And so you come back here, you can see that there is no data persistence yet at all. It went away. We're going to create the new to-do item. We're going to say wash the car, let's say, and we can actually click on that. And that will actually, toggle, which is great. But there's no data persistence yet. How do we make this persist data now that we're able to actually create a to-do item and edit it? Okay, so the way we're going to do this is this. On change of, what do we need to monitor the change of? The to-do, okay? Now on change of, perform this thing. What do we want to do? Well, we're going to save. But first, you see this little error message that said, hey, to-do does not conform to equatable. So we can fix that really easily. We can come here and say, make this equatable. And that works just fine because UUID, string, and bools are primitives. And you can make it this to-do struct equatable just by adding that protocol. Now that message goes away. And what do we want to do here on change of? Well, we want to save. And the items, what are the items? It's going to be the to-dos. So we're going to just say to-dos. And then what's this key string here? Well, we're going to have to give it a unique name. So we'll say private let key equals. We need a name, to-dos, and we'll call it model view data, let's just say. All right, and now we put key in here, boom, like that. So what happens is anytime we got an error message, it says to-do needs to conform to decodable and encodable. That again is very easy. We can just say, hey, make it codable. And because these primitive data types are already codable, just by adding codable, it gets rid of the error message. Voila. And of course, we need to do the same thing right here when we do the add. So after you append a to-do, we should also save. And last but not least, we need to load the data when it appears. So we're going to say on appear. And when it appears, what do we want to do is, well, we want to set to-dos equal to the loaded data. And the data function is merely this, load key. This key, of course, is this key, which is the same key as the save keys. And we're good to go. So now let's create a to-do. And we're going to say, wash the car. We're going to go check mark. And then let's build now. And the build is successful, review paused. And we're going to restart. And it has persisted. Beautiful. And we're going to do another one. You say, feed the dog. And it's done or not done. The data has persisted. And we're good to go. So this is one way of doing this. There are many different ways that are much more sophisticated than this. And we can cover that later in a separate video. But this will get you going on data persistence. And what you have to do is you have to be careful to do the save on changeout when something changes. And then when you add something, of course, you have to save. And then you have to load on appear. Those are the key things that you need to do. You need to also pick a unique identifier as the key. Otherwise, you could have troubles for that particular thing that you're doing. Hope this is helpful, and it's a pretty simple way to persist data. We'll try the MVVM method in the next one, but this is certainly going to get you there for many different purposes. All right, see you next on the next video. Take care. Oh, by the way, like and subscribe. If you could add some comments down below and tell me if anything was not clear or if you'd like me to cover something else, I can do that, and it'd really be helpful to grow the channel. Take care. Bye-bye.